I'd first like to state sorry how dark this video has actually come out. I really don't know what's happening. I didn't notice it until I was starting to edit this video together. This week's video is again going to feature an animal jar. So last week we focused on a dog, and this week we are going to focus on a rabbit. This video will basically be me making the rabbit jar again and checking the pattern and explaining some of the terminology I use in the pattern. The pattern will be available on Ravelry.com and it'll be available in a few different varieties. Either you can buy the full pattern or you can just buy the parts that make it look like a bunny rabbit or the parts that make it look like a dog. Alright, here we go. Starting with the main body of the jar, I chain 31, joined it into a loop and started working on rounds. With any jar you are either increasing or decreasing depending on the size of said jar. When we reach the base of the jar, we need to do a sharp change of direction. So this means working our next row of stitches in the back loop only. So as you can see, we have 2 loops here on the previous stitch. When we work in the back loop only with crochet, we are only working through that back loop. So normally we would work through both of them, but for back loop only we only work in the back and we do our stitch exactly the same way we would any other time. Okay, I am now going to show you how we start the front paw here. So I have my chain. I'm going to do 3 double crochets, single crochets if you are US terminology, into this first chain from the hook. Now I've got 1, 2, 3 chains left. I'm going to put a double crochet into the first 2, leaving the last one empty. Now in this last one, I'm going to put 3 double crochets again. So you've been working along this way. Now you're going to rotate your work and you're going to work along the back here. You're going to put the same number of double crochets by themselves that you put here. So for me that was 2. This now will form a round. So from here, you are now working around. So this will be your last stitch, and this is where your first stitch goes for the next round. On row 6 of the front leg pattern that I'm working on here, it states that you will be doing 3 half trebles, decreases and double crochets in the front loop only. So I'm going to start with the front loop only and show you that. So as you can see, stitches have 2 parts of them. They have a back loop and a front loop. So when a stitch asks you to work through the front loop only, you are only working through the front loop, and you do your stitch as normal, like so. I'm going to show you how I do my decreases. Again, you're going to work in the front loop for this. I put the hook under and through this first front loop. Then on the next stitch, put the hook under and through the first stitch again. So you can see here I've got 1, 2, 3 loops. Yarn over hook. I'm going to pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over hook, pull through the last 2. That is an invisible decrease. Now I'm going to show you how I do a half treble, because honestly I don't know what to call it in American terminology. I've heard it called a double crochet and I've heard it called a half double crochet, so I just don't know. So this is how I do one. Yarn over hook, hook through the stitch, yarn over hook, pull through the stitch. So I've got 1, 2, 3 loops on my hook. Yarn over hook, pull through all 3. That's how I do a half treble. We're now going to work on the top of the back leg, which is this part here. So it's kind of like the leg is bent here, so it'd be like coming up from the hip and then going down to the foot. But obviously I haven't put all of those details on, we've just put this round here. Now this is like any other round, apart from we are not going to start with 6 DCs or 6 SCs single crochet in the magic / adjustable loop. We're going to start with 8. So we're going to be increasing by 8 for the next 2 rows, and then we'll be starting to decrease, but we won't be doing 6 or rather 8 decreases per round. We'll only be doing 1, and I'll show you the final shape for that at the end. So here it is, all finished. See, it hasn't been closed at the end because for the rabbit it actually gets nipped closed and then attached to the side. However, before I attach it, I'm going to make the other foot. I just think it helps position it better. This also needs to be lightly stuffed, and I mean lightly because when you put it onto the side of the jar, obviously this side is going to bend in while this side needs to puff out, so you don't want to overstuff that. The ears have also been worked with 8 double crochets in the foundation chain, so they've been increased by 8 or decreased by 8 on each round. The top has been closed with just a running stitch going through the front loops only to join them up, and the ear is flat with no stuffing in it at all. Now working on this back foot here, which I have to admit is kind of all what a rabbit's about, a big back foot. So we're on to the last few stitches. So I want to show you this because the last row, row 9, isn't a complete row. So it does 2 decreases at the tip here. You give yourself a long tail. Some stuffing. Oh, it's a bit too much. We are going to thread this tail through the front loops on both sides, just using a running stitch. Just flatten it out a bit and secure that. I'm gonna leave the tail on just so I can secure it to the jar when all done, but we're going to attach the foot pad and the toe pads to this now. Toe pads here are really easy. They are simply just, where's my hand? They're simply just a magic circle with 6 DCs or SCs if you're American or using American terminology. Moving on to the head itself, so I've started here with the top of the head. So this was the first head that I tried for the rabbit jar, but it just didn't look right for it. I mean, for a different type of rabbit pattern, it probably would work, but with this being a bit more of a cartoonized one, with it being on the jar, it just doesn't feel right. However, I have kept a note of this pattern because I think it looks like it could be a beautiful strawberry. So it was quite literally back to the drawing board with the head. I started with fully redrawing the entire jar and I settled on this. Took a side view here and this was roughly the size that we did actually end up getting. Now, unlike the original head that I did, which is here, this was all in one colour. I'm actually going to change colours back to white for the cheeks here. Now the first thing I'm going to do is a colour change in the last row. So you do this by starting with your original colour, hook through the stitch, yarn over hook, pull through, then you get your new yarn, finish off the stitch. Now I like to just tie the ends here just so the stitch is nice and tight, because it can become quite loose on a colour change, especially as the stitches I'm doing now are going to be in the front loop only again. I'm doing a increase here with 2 trebles into the same stitch. Normally with all my patterns it's an increase with a double crochet stitch, but this one is done over trebles and there are 3 sets of them. It's just to give the cheeks a nice poofy look. I'm now going to decrease using a triple crochet stitch. So yarn over hook, go through the front loop of 1 stitch, the front loop of a 2nd stitch, yarn over hook, pull through 2 stitches, yarn over hook, pull through 2 stitches, yarn over hook, pull through 2 stitches. And here it is in all of its finished glory. Now it's always up to you. I always hot glue the base on, but you could leave it off as well. I'll put the link to the patterns in the descriptions. And that's it. Thank you, YouTube.